Hey, East High Health Kids, Mr. Eckert here to bring you another amazing, engaging virtual lesson. Um, Couple of news things, which I'm probably sure you've already heard about, but Governor Cuomo announced that we will not be coming back to school for the rest of the year. Uh, some people may be happy about this. Some people may be upset about this. Some people may be like, kind of figured it. If you're like me, you're like, okay, you hear the news, you find out, and you say, all right, what are we going to do about it? Well, I know the only thing I can do about it is keep sending, not work for you guys, but it's sending you information, knowledge. I'm empowering you to take charge of your own education from home. We don't know what's going to happen yet with marking period 4. They haven't told us. They haven't made those decisions. I think a lot of districts and the state in general are just making stuff up as they go. So we can't control what decisions they're going to make. But what we can control is how engaged you are and how hard you work from home and how empowered you feel about your own education. So it's kind of nice that market period 4, we talk about all these things that really pertain to your emotional health. And today, specifically, we're going to talk about stress. Mr. Eckert, how can I be stressed? I'm just sitting at home right now playing video games. Well, I'm not going to lie, for me, that makes me stressed out. I'll explain later. Okay, so let's jump into it. I'm going to share my screen and let's get into our lesson about stress. So here is your learning tracker for today. I'm actually going to get it a little bit bigger so we can see it a little better. Let's go to 150. There we go. All right, so notice you have a learning target. I'm going to start reading those because they're important. So learning target for today, I can explain the body's physical and psychological responses to stressful situations and explain why this is unhealthy over prolonged periods. So your do now today says, how do you know when you are stressed? What is the feeling that you get? How do you know, or your body tells you that you are stressed out? Fill that in. Your vocab for today. Remember, at any time, guys, you can just pause the video, write response, start it up again, and listen to me speak, or you don't even have to watch me, right? So stress is your first word. Stress is any change, internal, external, positive or negative. So it can be positive. Stress can be positive, to which a person must adapt. Anything that causes physical and or mental wear and tear on the body and mind. Stress is a physical reaction. Then we have what we call a stressor. So a stressor is the actual event or demand that you must adapt to, and it's what's happening that causes that stress reaction. For some people, it might be speaking in public, might be if they get scared by a spider, they find a spider in their house, if they're running out of time, their parents are fighting. And then we have 2 types of stress that you can endure. The first one's what we call eustress. So that's good stress. That's something that makes you feel good about yourself. It increases your self-esteem or sense of accomplishment. Things like getting married, having a baby, trying out for a team. For me, exercise. And then we have these things called distress. This is the bad stress. So that's the pressures of work, school, social or family relationships or situations. And a lot of times, if these feelings, especially at your age, if you feel like these issues are insurmountable due to whatever it could be, that causes bad distress in your life. And examples of these are any fears you might have, illness, fighting between people, not good stress. So below this, now that you've seen these two types of stress, what are the stressors in your life? So what are the things that cause stress in your life? But it could be good stress or it could be bad stress, right? What are the stressors in your life? Next part of this learning tracker, you're going to read an article. I'm going to click on the article, but I'm not going to get too in depth with it because I want you to actually read it. But notice when I clicked on this writing here, that link popped up. I know some people are having trouble with links. They're there. You just got to click and then click again. It should open up the link. If you have any issues with it, let me know. But this article is about stressed out, and I want to highlight this area right here because this talks about your actual physical body under pressure and what each part of the body does in response to the stress. So this is what your brain does in response to stress. Your heart, your liver, your lungs, your stomach, your muscles, your sweat glands. Obviously, I don't have to read this one. I know sweat glands, if you get really stressed out, they're going to activate, right? Hopefully, everyone at some point has felt good stress, like exercise activity, that they know what goes on with their heart, right? Sort of pumping faster, harder. So there's all these things and how the body physically responds to stress, but then we also have this chronic stress up here. Now, I'm going to read the definition of chronic stress. That's ongoing or chronic. So it doesn't go away, and it doesn't allow the body's stress hormones to go back to their normal levels. And that chronic stress can lead to health complications and problems later on down in life. So read through these because these are things that you really want to try and avoid. Or if you're reading through these and you understand that you're struggling with some of these, well, we got to come up with ways for you to work on that and deal with them so that way you don't have those long-term effects. Because I know, and I'm going to highlight one right now that I know a lot of people struggle with, especially at your age. That's sleep problems. If you're not on a good sleep schedule, it stresses your body out. You don't know it, but it stresses your body out. Whoever is taking a nap, and it's been like way too long of a nap, and they wake up and they just feel lousy. They feel like trash. That's not good for you. That's not good for your body. Something to think about. And then there's ways over here to help you cope with stress. So I want you to read through these, go back to the learning tracker, and tell me 5 things that you learned from this learning tracker. You got to read through it. I didn't tell you 5 things. I want you to read through it. Next, we have 3 videos. And before I click on the videos, I want to read what the activity tells me to do, right? So it says, make the connection to the brain, stress, and physical reaction. Click on the videos above and complete the chart. So the questions that they're asking you, that we're asking you, it would be important to read the questions first and then click on the video. So you don't just watch the video, you look at all the questions like, oh, what was that again? And go back, right? So the first question, what is fight or flight? Why is fight or flight good? What are at least 5 physical effects of fight or flight? And what are at least 5 health consequences of long-term stress? So I know these videos better talk about the flight or fight response. And I know that we're going to hear some consequences of long-term stress. So the first video, now the video is a little tricky. You got to click on the video. It'll highlight the little box here, and then you click on the YouTube link. It'll take you to your first video. I'm gonna
I just read an unbelievable article in the Epic Times. Take a look.
skip this
It's an
ad.
investigation into the mysterious every day.
I'm gonna watch it with
Seconds
you.
of any stressor, your body goes into fight or flight mode. First, your eyes and ears send information to your amygdala, the emotional processing center of the brain. Then, from your amygdala, the information moves to your hypothalamus, which communicates with your autonomic nervous system and
Ooh, those nerves. Remember what those nerves do? Starts in your brain. There's a little command center there, right? And that nerves all go down throughout your body, through your spinal cord, go out to different parts of your body. So when all of a sudden you are stressed by something or something scares you, the brain sends a signal and you're going to do one of two things. What do you think that is?
adrenal glands. These glands then release a burst of the neurotransmitter adrenaline. This causes the classic feeling of stress, increased heart rate, increased blood pressure, and faster breathing.
Adrenaline. Everyone's heard of adrenaline. It's what really gets you going, right? Increased blood pressure. Heart's really pumping. Your lungs start taking in more oxygen.
The adrenaline also triggers the release of the stress hormone cortisol. We always hear about the danger of cortisol, but it's actually released to protect your brain from the nerve damage associated with trauma. Within 10 minutes of being stressed, behavioral changes likely take place, including increased aggressive behavior. Around 30 minutes, you may become forgetful, as stress can decrease long-term memory and impair concentration. And
So the length of the stress really matters. And you can see just between 10, 30 minutes, the difference in what it can do to someone if they're stressed for that long of a period.
after days of consistent stress, your sex drive will likely decrease. Why? From an evolutionary perspective, getting out there and mating would increase the odds of predation. So, one theory is we may have evolved to decrease our sex drive when stressed to avoid potential threats. But after months of being stressed, your cognitive function will really start to decline. Longitudinal studies of employees in stressful work environments show increased incidences of depression and poor circulatory health. A study on rats showed that 6 months after being chronically stressed, the rats had increased levels of anxiety and decreased abilities to navigate a maze.
Ooh, so even the smallest test subjects, think about when you're at school or someday if you get a job or if you have a job right now. If you're stressed, you have long-term stress, it's going to start affecting your performance, right? So they did a study, and if they stress out a rat, and there's different ways you can stress out an animal, right? You know how we can stress out, dogs, by doing things that, when if anyone owns a dog, I know when my dog's stressed out, they get nervous or they get concerned about something. Well, rats had difficulty navigating through a maze to get out to the other end if they were under stress, just like someone would at work. Their work performance would struggle. It would decline if they're under long periods of stress.
This was due to changes in their hippocampus, all linked to increased levels of cortisol. This highlights that although we know cortisol is meant to protect your brain from trauma, long-term exposure to it can be detrimental. With all this in mind, it's no surprise that chronic stress has been linked to many diseases such as obesity, depression, and heart disease. And
I'll say those three again: obesity, depression, heart disease. Do those sound like good things? Mm-mm. All three of those things, very, very unhealthy, and all can and most likely will lead to early death, right? You want to get rid of these things. You don't want to have these things because you want to live a long, happy, fulfilling life, right? Well, stress plays a big part in you being able to do that.
suppression of the immune system with increased susceptibility to colds, sleep issues, GI issues, fertility issues, memory problems, and even cancer. So trying to minimize your stress might be a good idea. But what can you even do to lower your stress levels? Our latest podcast goes into some tactics that you can do to reduce your stress right now based on studies and some of our own personal experiences. You can click on the screen or...
All right, so the next lesson, part 2 lesson for this week, is going to be about ways dealing with stress. So they're talking about, you can click on their videos and look at ways to, but Miss Flaherty and I are going to give you some ways that you personally can deal with stress, even at your home. Next video. So right from there, I can already think of a couple ways to answer these questions, right? So this next, I'm not gonna watch this whole video. I think it might be interesting to a lot of individuals because the title of it, Does Stress Cause Pimples? Might be pertinent to teens. Check that video out. But I am gonna click on the last one and we're gonna watch that one together.
The great enemy of writing isn't your own lack of talent, it's being interrupted.
Overworking epidemic, these individuals who are seemingly healthy and in their prime suddenly die. After being officially recognized and documented in Japan, these sudden heart attacks and strokes were quickly linked to stress. But how does stress cause this? Cortisol is one of the main stress hormones, which helps divert energy to where you need it and away from non-essential functions of the body. But with chronic stress exposure, problems arise. The immune system shuts down, inflammation is inhibited, white blood cells are reduced, and susceptibility to disease increases.
So all these bad things again are happening. The immune system actually, the thing that keeps you healthy, fights off disease, it actually doesn't work as well. So think of now, the time when we have this pandemic going on, if you're stressed out and you're exposed to something like that, your body's gonna have a tougher time fighting it off.
Some evidence also suggests that prolonged stress may be involved in the development of cancer. When looking at the arteries of macaque monkeys, those under significant stress have more clogged arteries. This prevents blood from getting to the heart quickly during stress and can ultimately lead to heart attacks. The brain also takes a toll. When looking at mice exposed to stress, we see dramatically smaller brain cells with fewer branch extensions than normal mice. This is particularly prevalent in the areas associated with memory and learning, which may stir up some memories for you of those wonderful all-night study sessions. The acute stress and sleep deprivation can make it increasingly difficult to remember the things we want to. Perhaps the most telling story is in our DNA. We contain something called telomeres at the end of our chromosomes, which decrease in size with our age. Our video on aging here explains this process. Eventually, the telomeres run out, at which point the cell stops duplicating and dies. So telomeres are directly related to aging and length of life. And it turns out, stress may actually accelerate the shortening of these telomeres. But not all hope is lost for the perpetually stressed. Another hormone.
So that again, physical, actual proof and evidence that stress can increase you aging and decrease your life expectancy, right?
Oxytocin has been shown to reduce this stress response. It helps your blood vessels relax and even regenerates the heart from stress-related damage. So how do we get more oxytocin? It's sometimes dubbed the cuddle hormone because it's released during positive social interactions and while caring for others. People who spend more time with others create a buffer or resilience to stress. So when life gets the best of you...
How can you do that right now? Well, your family group invites you to a Zoom, join it, because it actually is helping you deal with stress, right? Join my office hours. I know I've only had like 1 or 2 kids and we just talk about basketball. So yes, we talk about work and school related things, but it's also another way for you to reach out, connect to people, and to reduce that stress that you'd experience being alone.
Just remember, you don't have to go it alone. Spend some time with those you love. It may just save your life. Got a burning question you want answered?
All right, so back to your learning tracker. You want to answer these 4 questions. So the next part says, what are your responses to stress? How do you know that you're stressed out? So think of yourself personally now. How do you respond to stress? What do you do specifically to deal with that stress? I know me personally, if I'm stressed out, I need to do things. I need to get moving. And for me now, older, I don't exercise as much, admittingly so. But what I do is a lot of times is I'll start working on stuff just around my house. Maybe I'll start building something. And that's how I deal personally with stress. How I know that I'm stressed? Me? I get this nervous feeling. I get like a little bit of anxiety feeling in my chest, almost like a tightness, right? And I can feel my heart start to beat more. And that is, for me, being alone, being at home, without being able to do a lot, I struggle with that. So I got to get outside. I got to do stuff. So when the weather's bad, it's a rough day for me. All right, we're getting towards the end. It says, make a connection. Stress is primal. Good. It was meant to help us survive. So why is stress bad now? And when does it become bad? Think about that. We were born with this instinct, this reaction to have stress, but it helps us survive. In a fight or flight situation, your decision that you make could be the difference of life and death, right? Hopefully you don't have to deal with anything like that. But if you don't, and you're getting these stressful situations, it may not necessarily be a quick fight or flight reaction, but any stress that you incur, deal with, you have to make a decision and respond to it. You have to make a decision to either run away or to deal with it. And that's the fight response. So when does stress become bad? What causes it to become bad stress? So then your exit ticket, what stresses you out? What are your personal responses to stress? What are your personal potential health consequences to stress? How can it affect you personally? Ms. Flaherty gave us an example. I'm going to read it for you. Scholars not engaging in school causes her stress. She says, I know that I'm stressed because I have a hard time concentrating on things, bump into things, a hard time sleeping, and can't stop thinking about it and ways to help. In the future, I could get into a car accident from not paying attention and being sleep deprived. So right there, she told us what causes her stress, how she knows personally that she's stressed, and then what could happen if she doesn't deal with the stress, right? What negative effects it could have on her. An example for Mr. Eckert, sitting around the house with not a lot to do. It's when I sit in those dull, lulling moments, if you will, that I start to get stressed out. My mind starts going, and I don't have anywhere to channel my energy. I can start to feel like an anxiety feeling. I'll notice that I might get a headache, and I get some actual tightness in my chest. And then my long-term potential health consequences, it could be like a heart attack. It could be, you have an increased risk of stroke. Obesity is one of those things that I dealt with. If people remember at the beginning of the year, I lost a bunch of weight because I was worried about, my weight affecting me later on in life. All my students know that. So we want you to answer that question with your personal response. Ms. Flaherty gave you hers. I gave you mine. I want you to go in and give us one of yours. So with that being said, I have Mr. Eckert's, I'm going to start doing this. I have some health all-stars or quarantine health all-stars that I'd like to just give recognition to. So for my class so far, these individuals, Janwell, Janaya, Justice, Amaja, Jakayas, Samaja, Khalees, Nisha, Youssef, Nashawn, Nishita, Jilly, Keith, Angel, Sharu, and Ramir. Great job. You've started off marking period 4, getting some work done, and that is what I want to see. And I know other people that I've left off have done work for marking period 3, but I'm going to do this as a marking period 4 thing. And I'm going to touch base with Ms. Flaherty, and we're going to give her students some recognition as well. So that's it for lesson 1 for this week, stress, and I will be making another lesson video for you shortly. So talk to you guys soon. Bye.